going to be fun. Some of you have asked if I would show you how to paint Love Grows here, this is the print of what the finished original art looks like. And this is the 9x12 printed canvas sheet, and you can order these on SociableArt.com, this design and many other designs. And I'm going to show you several different techniques on here, so that's what's going to be fun. I'm going to show you how to just use the acrylics that come with the printed sheet, and then I'm also going to show you some water-soluble oil pastels and watercolors and show you the difference on one canvas. So let's get started. I'm going to show you first just the traditional paint, and I have a turquoise paint here. And if that did not come with your paint set, you can easily mix turquoise by just mixing white and green and, white and blue and yellow, or green and blue if you have green. And if you mix the combination right, you'll get a turquoise color. And adding a little white to it will just lighten it up. So what I'm doing is I'm just adding this turquoise color to the background. But with this particular painting style that I did on this painting, I like to have some loose brush strokes of different colors. So I might add some streaks of white in and just make sure that it's not just one tone. I like to have the different shades in there. So I had some darker turquoise and lighter areas. And then you don't have to create this border around it. You can go right to the edges. I used masking tape to tape it down. And what I would suggest is if you're using the 9x12 printed sheet, that you just paint right over to the edges and you can just trim it when you're done. And you can even add some darker shades by adding a little bit of the darker shade of blue in there, cobalt blue. Just adding some of that. And you can add a little water to your paint and it will make it flow a little bit better and be a little bit looser. Like I said, I just wanted to have the streaks of color and different shades in there. And what you can do, there's two different ways that you can do it. You can just paint the whole background like a solid shade of blue and then add the streaks into it. So like I could create this one area that's one shade, like this. And then I could go back and add streaks in like that. So either way you can do it, and you can do it both ways. You can add some streaks and then later add more while it's dry. It's easier to add streaks that kind of blend in if the paint is still wet. It depends on what look you like. And I would love it if you would just kind of experiment and play around with it, because remember that if you do something you don't like if I create a really dark area down here and then I decide that I don't like it, I can paint right over it. So that's the wonderful thing about paints, and maybe some of these other mediums we're going to try are not quite as forgiving as the acrylics. But that's one thing you can do with this. So what I'm doing also is while I'm painting this, I don't know if you noticed this, but as I'm going around the heart, I might use different kinds of brush strokes, but eventually I want the brush strokes to kind of accentuate the shape. So I made sure to have some that go down along the stem and around the heart like this, and the brush strokes are just accentuating the shape there. See? Okay? And as I said, if you're doing this at home on the 9x12 sheet, you can just kind of have your brush strokes go into this border area too. So that's what acrylic paints look like. You get kind of a deep color. You can do the streaks of color really easily, which you might not be able to do with the other medium. And you can add in other shades, like I could add purple in. And now I'm going to show you what these chalk pastels are like. And let's choose a color to do maybe in the center here. And so I'm adding this in, really chalky. It's gonna leave like chalk fiber. These are cheap too. I mean, you can buy cheap ones to start out and see if you like it before investing a lot of money in it. And then maybe add another shade in here. And don't worry, there's one more step I'm gonna add. It's not gonna continue to look quite so chalky. Here's another shade of blue. Do it around here. And maybe even a nice dark shade. See this blue here has some purple in it, and that's gonna look really good up against the red. If you ever have a chance, do a little study of color theory. Even if you spend 5 minutes looking up an article on the internet, it will be helpful if you find out some of the principles of color theory for when you're painting. Okay, so what I've just done is I got a brush, a clean brush, and I got it damp. And I'm taking this damp brush and I am running it over this loose chalk, and it turns it into kind of a chalk paint. And then you can blend the colors together also. And then you don't have all that loose chalk fiber, which I'm not even sure if this is a real technique, but this is the way that I like to do it. I hate having that loose chalk on there. Okay, so a completely different look. That's the chalk pastels. Now I have these water-soluble oil pastels. And they're gonna go on there as if, you know, kind of like a crayon. And that's why they're kind of fun to use, because it'll take you back to childhood, and also it'll give you kind of a degree of control that you don't have maybe with the paints and the other things that we use. I'm gonna add a little bit of green next to this heart, because green is opposite on the color wheel from red. So it'll really make the red pop if I put a little bit around that area where the red is gonna be. Okay, so I put in some blue, some turquoise, a darker blue here, maybe around the edge. Maybe I'll add just a little more blue to fill in, and maybe some white right here so I can have a lighter area underneath these. These are blendable, so you can put colors on top of colors, and when we get them wet, they will blend together. Okay, so add those in. Now get my damp, clean brush, and look at that. I love the colors that you can get with these water-soluble oil pastels. Look at that, they're so bright. It's unlike the chalk. I mean, the chalk is nice if you like more of a pastel, a softer look. These colors are very vibrant and good for different things. Like this painting is very bright, so it's good for this. But the pastels might be nicer for like a landscape or a beach scene. So here's what you get when you wet these water-soluble oil pastels. And the ones that I bought, let's see, I have some Reeves, and this is Portfolio. And again, these are not the most expensive ones, because who would want to spend a lot of money on something like this unless you know it's something you're going to continue as a hobby. Okay, so those are 3 different things. I got one more different technique to show you, and that is watercolor. So I have a watercolor set here, and I'm going to use the turquoise blue paint. And so I didn't water my watercolor is not that watery. I actually wanted to leave a lot of pigment in it, so I didn't add a ton of water into it. And this is a green shade. I started with the turquoise. This is green. And then I think I have a darker blue I can add. Maybe some, whoops, that didn't work at all. Don't really like that color. Looks like black, it's much too navy. Maybe add some of this bright green in here and a little more of the turquoise back in that area. Okay, so that is your watercolor. And then I think I'll go back to the water-soluble oil pastels to fill in this heart. And you can use more than one color. and you can use them on top of each other. So I started with the red on the outside to give it a really deep color there. And then this is an orange red. And maybe a little pink in there too in the center. Let's see how that turns out. You really don't know until you get your damp brush and turn it into a paint. I like that. And you can also add white into this too. There is a white crayon as well. And just when you think you're done, I mean, you can still keep adding to it. So now for the middle one, let's do this one in the chalk pastel. And I'm using the pink one. These are really hard, and like I said, they create kind of a chalk dust when you use them. Some people love them. I don't know if I really am crazy about the dust. And then you could add maybe a yellow or something on top of it. And I like to then wet mine. Interesting to kind of dab it too and see what kind of effect you can get. If you ever tried to do that, it's kind of like sponging. You can kind of dab and get textural effects. Okay, and over on this side, well, let's stick with our paint since that's what we used here. So I have some red, and I could just do it. Let's see what the original's like. The original's kind of just straight red, but I could make it a little more interesting. I could either make it like a salmon color by doing red and white and a little yellow. Like a salmon pink. Let's see if we like that. Not too crazy about that. I say we go back to just the red, or we could even do it a purpley shade. That might be fun. Kind of like that. So here's a purplish one. And the thing about the acrylics, you get deep color and you can mix. You can even mix right here on the canvas. I'm adding a little red into it. You could add white. Just want to show you how versatile it is, that you can just blend right on the canvas. You just gotta let yourself be relaxed about it and play around like you did when you were a kid and you weren't quite as worried about the outcome. It should be fun. It should not be a stressful experience. Okay, so those are our 3 different techniques. And I'm going to continue to fill in using a variety of techniques, and I'm just going to do the rest in kind of a fast frame. But just to give you an idea of what comes next, I would finish filling in the blue background around the sun, and then I'll add the yellow sun in and have it overlap into the blue area. I will fill in these words with white, but I will allow there to be a faint accent of color, maybe a little blue that comes into the white or something like that. And then I'm gonna paint right over the letters, and then I'll use a liner brush or a paint pen to then write the words back once it's dry. There will be dark green stems and then a lighter green, like a green and yellow hill here. And again, I'll show the brush strokes. I wanna have different shades and show the brush strokes. And then when I'm finished, I can go back and add some more lines into the background, maybe do a little bit of outlining if I feel like it with a darker color, or with the paint pen if you're going to use that for your letters. And then it will be your own finished artwork. And please do it your way. Use whatever techniques you want, whatever media. If you have any questions, just put them in the comment section and I'll answer, like if you want to know what kind of materials I was using. Just if I forgot to say, the soft pastels, the chalk pastels, these are just an Artist's Loft soft pastels.